Hi, welcome to this session. This is a session where we are going to revise a recap of everything that we have learned thus far. Now here we would be loading the data and creating various subsets of the data, and we will see the various techniques how we can carry forward while subsetting the data when we have various requirements. So to get started, I'm using a file which is about housing, and I will definitely share the file so that you can use it for practicing. So you will find the link for that file as well as this code in the description section of this video, and you can download that and you can practice along with the code and the data. Good enough? Let's get started. Now let's import the data. I have given the name for my data as housing.df. df stands for data frame, and I'm using this read.csv. Reason being, I'm using a CSV file. So read.csv is a function which helps me import a CSV file. And file.choose is a standard function which I often use. Reason, I don't need to remember the working directory and I don't need to exactly figure out where my file lies. Okay, so that's the purpose of using this file.choose. And header equals true refers to the first label row. That is to say, the first row consists of labels for each column. So if you say true, that is to say the first row contains the labels for each column. And if you mention false, that implies that you do not have any labels for the columns. So let's import our data. So when I run this, it opens up a dialog box and you simply have to give the path where your data lies. So I'm just giving the path for it and I'm getting to the folder. Now this is the data. I've imported the data, right? So next, I wish to figure out, or I wish to find the dimensions of my data frame. Dimensions refer to the number of rows and columns that my data has. So that is dim. Dim refers to dimensions. Okay. So dim housing.df. So this will give me the number of rows. I have 5,802 rows in my data and 14 columns. Good. Moving on. We have, if I wish to show the first 6 rows of my data frame. So how to do that? I have a beautiful function called head. So head housing.df refers to when I wish to show the first 6 rows. Now when I run that, I get the first 6 rows of my data frame. Okay. So you could see these are the first 6 rows and all the columns are included. Good. Now at times you may require some other number other than 6. For instance, here I said 6. So head gives me the default 6 rows. Now, for instance, I need 7, 8 or 10. What you need to do simply is put a comma over here, add a new argument. Like if I need 10 rows, I would write 10. So when I run this, it gives me the first 10 rows of my data. This is how it produces the first 10 rows of your data. At times, you may require the data from the bottom. Okay, head gives me the first 6 rows. Now, if I wish to show the last 6 rows or any number of rows, what you have to do? Just, I'm copying this comment over here. So rather than first, I'm writing last. So I'll show the last 6 rows. So the function that you require over here is tail. So I write the tail and whatever is your data frame. So just include the name of your data frame and use the function tail. So this function gives me the bottom 6 rows. So you could see this. These are the bottom 6 rows. And likewise, if you require some other number of bottom rows, in that case, just put a comma. And let us say if I'm required to produce the last 8 rows, in such case, I mention 8 And if you run that, you get the bottom 8 rows. You can count it: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. Moving on. Now, if I wish to see the entire data in a new tab, in that case, you have this handy function, view. Remember, for view, the V is in caps. So many a times I've seen my students make this mistake. They often write view with a small v, but remember, it has to be in caps. So view, whatever is your data frame, run that. Now you get a new tab and the entire data is visible to you. Nice. Close it down. Moving on. Now we would practice some subsettings of this data. I wish to create various subsets, and I'm giving you some instances or some applications of subsetting, and let us practice how to do that. Now, for instance, I wish to show the first 10 rows of the first column only. Okay, so as I have taught you earlier, what you need to do is take the data frame, that is housing.df, use a square bracket. Remember, we use the normal parenthesis for a function and we use a square bracket for a data frame. Okay, so for instance, here view is a function. I use the normal brackets. Housing.df is my data set. So for that, if I need to get into my data, I need to explore it. In that case, I'll use a square bracket. Okay, so within the square bracket, how do we arrange our arguments? The first argument that goes is rows, comma, columns. This is how it works. So within the square brackets, rows, comma, columns. So what is the requirement over here? I wish to show the first 10 rows. Okay, so for the rows argument, I'm using 1 through 10. Okay, so just observe this, 1 through 10, because I require the first 10 rows and I require the first column only. So in that case, I use the index of the first column, that is 1. So rows 1 through 10, and for the column argument, I'm using 1. So when I run that, you get the required data. That is, I get the values of the first column for the first 10 rows. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. This is how it works. Good enough? Moving on. I wish to show the first 10 rows of each of the columns. So what is different from the previous task? In the previous task, I wanted the first 10 row values from the first column only. But now I require the first 10 row values from each of the columns. Okay, so the basic logic remains the same. The data frame, whatever I'm using here, it is housing.df. Within your square brackets, the first 10 rows, that is 1 through 10, comma. When you leave it blank, okay, when you leave it blank, that implies the default argument for leaving the column argument blank refers to that you need all the columns. So run this. You get the values for the first 10 rows for all the columns. Okay, now you can have a look at it. Now these are all the columns and you get the first 10 row values for all the columns. Good. Moving on. The next task that I have in hand is I have to show the fifth row of the first 10 columns. Understand this. Fifth row of the first 10 columns. So the logic is still the same. Housing.df is the data frame. Take a square bracket. I need the row, comma, column arguments. So I need the fifth row. So take the index 5 because it refers to the fifth row, and I require the first 10 columns. So here I would be using 1 through 10. Good. So this is what exactly we did when it was for rows. Now I wanted to show the same logic applies when it comes to columns as well. So let's run this and see what we get. Now here I get the fifth row values for all the columns from 1 through 10. Okay, so you can count the number of columns. Column number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So these are the 10 different columns with the fifth row values. Nice. I clean it up. Moving on. The next task that we have is show the fifth row of some columns. Okay, so I've just said some columns. I can pick any random columns, but you may have various requirements. So we would understand how things would work over here. Okay, logic is still the same. I have housing.df. This is the data in the square brackets. I need the fifth row. So the argument would be 5. It refers to the index number of the fifth row. And then I'm randomly picking some columns. So in that case, you're required to use this C function, the combine function, where you would combine some random columns. So here I have taken 1:2. This means that 1 and 2, the first two columns, then the fourth column, and then the 8th, 9th, and 10th column. So in total, I have taken first, second, fourth, 8th, 9th, and 10th. Total 6 columns. Okay, so your requirement could be anything. You just have to place all those column numbers within the C function, the combine function. So when you run this, you get the required values. Okay, the fifth row, and you have this total value, tax, okay, year built. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 columns. Right? Good. Moving on. What are we required to do next? Next, I need to show the whole of first column. Again, the logic is quite simple. Housing.df is your data within the square brackets. I need to show the whole of first column. That means I need to include all the rows. So here I have left the row argument as blank. That means all the rows need to be included. So leave it blank. And then which column? The column argument would take the index 1 because I require the values from the first column. So run this. I get the values. Okay. You could see these are the values. Good. I'll clean it up. So to clean your console, you have to use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl+L. So it cleans up your console. Next, moving on. The next task that I have is I need to show the first 10 rows of the first column. Again, quite simple. The first 10 rows. Okay. So here I've used a different logic. I made a change. What did I do? I've taken housing.df. I've used the $sign and I've taken the total value. Okay, the first column is total value, and then I've taken 1 through 10. This is one argument. This is one way you can do it. Okay, else using the basic argument that we use, you can do the same thing. Okay, housing.df. This is your data, square bracket. Now, what is the requirement? I need to show the first 10 rows. So 1 through 10, comma, of the first column. So put 1. Good. So you get whatever the results are. These are the results. Okay. Now let us try to dissect or disintegrate this code in line number 32. What exactly we tried to do? You see, earlier in some session, I have told you that you can navigate through any column using the $sign. So I use the $sign. I get a drop down box like this, and I can select the column which is required. So the column is total value. So now, whatever you have in line 33 right now, it is a vector. So when I want to create a subset within a vector, I can simply go to the square bracket, and because it doesn't have rows and columns, it's just now a column. Okay, it only has rows. So now 1 through 10. Okay, this is how I came up with this code. So both will produce the same result. Let us run it and see. Now you can see whatever we have produced in line number 33 and 34 are both identical. Okay, so I just gave you an alternate approach when we are working with a single column. Moving on, I wish to find the length of the first column. How to find the length? Length means the number of entries or number of observations. So I use the length function, and then this is my data frame, and I reached my total value column using this $sign. So run this. It will give you the number of entries. Okay, it will give you the number of entries in housing.df and the first column. So it says it has got 0 entries. Why so? Let us check. Length housing.df dollar. The first column is total value. So I check this total dot value. I run that. So I get 5,802. Now, can you guess what could be the problem? Why did I get 0 earlier and now I get 5,802? The problem was I had used total underscore value, and I do not have any such column. Okay, probably while I was typing, I used underscore rather than dot. Okay, so that was the error. Now, when I change this underscore to a dot, now you would see it will still produce the same result, 5,802. Okay, so that was the problem. So it's good that we came across this problem so that you will understand that you need to use the exact labels for your column names. Okay, moving on. Now, I need to find the mean of the first column. Quite simple. We have studied descriptive or summary statistics quite in detail in a previous session. So here it's just a practice of the same. So the function that I use is mean housing.df. I use the dollar and reach this total value. Here you would see that underscore. I'll replace it with dot. Now you know why. Run it. So I get the mean value as 392.6. Okay. Then I need to find the summary statistics. Again, we have discussed summary statistics quite elaborately in the previous session. So how do we do that? So summary and use your data frame, that is housing.df. Run that and you get the summary statistics for each column. Good enough. So these are the summary stats for each columns of your data set. Total value, tax, whatever, all the variables you have, you get the summary statistics of the same. Okay. Now, I hope you found this useful, and this is going to be a revision. And before I sign off for today, I'll also show you how I can save this script that I've written just now. Okay, so it's quite simple again. Now you have this save button over here. Click on this and assign the path. So whichever folder you wish to save, just go ahead and save that file over here. Okay, so here I'm just giving a name, loading and creating subsets from the data. Save it. Now just see, you get the name for your script as well. So this is how you save your script, so that in the future, if you wish to work upon the same file, you can just open it and start working on it. Thank you for watching. Do spread the good word. Bye-bye for today.